Hey, welcome back, folks. So I am going to get an awful lot of wind noise in this video. The breeze is pretty stiff today, so please bear with me. I'm going to try to avoid needing to do a voiceover, so I'll try to keep this brief and just kind of walk through some basics here. I'm going to show you a couple of things in progress, a mistake or two that I've made and I'm working on resolving, and we'll talk through some of the next steps. So first of all, you can see a pile of lumber here. This is red because it's pressure treated. Unlike your old school stuff, which might have been green, this stuff is all redwood, and the pressure treatment is not as toxic as it used to be. It's still not like I wouldn't eat it, but at the same time, it's not something that you're worried about, like the arsenic in it. So this is all the material that we have here. This is all that they sell in this area. So I'm using that. You can see I've got 3 pits here dug, and another 2 that you can kind of just barely see back there. These are the footings for the decks. Now these pits are not done. I need to get down there and square off the bottoms and clean them out. But what these are for is the footings for the deck. I'm going to be doing proper footings below frost line, and went down about 40 inches here. And I'll be using, I have some leftover footings from when I was pouring concrete on the house. Wasn't sure exactly how many I'd need, so I always buy a few more, and I'll be using those forms there. So I get some real nice footings with some sonotubes and get those set up here so that I can get a set of 3 footings out in front of this deck, and then 2 footings out on that one. That is much smaller. This is going to be about 16 by 12, and that's going to be about 14 by 8. So I don't need quite as many footings on that one. Plus, that will be carrying less load. This will be uncovered as a deck. This will be covered. So these posts here are 12 feet tall. I'm going to be pouring concrete footings and putting some hardware on top, putting the posts on top of that, and then building up to the roof line here so that I can get kind of a covered porch effect here. The roof will go this way. There will be a bit of a gable here with a 512 pitch roof running into the line of the house, and that side will not have that same treatment. So coming out of the house here, I paused for the weekend because I'm actually out of lumber. I went and I bought the last of what Home Depot had for 2x10s, and I've just run out of my pile here. I still have some 2x6s and 2x8s and 2x4s, miscellaneous things, but those are for other tasks. And what I've been doing is running joists for the second floor. So now you can start to see this take shape. And you can see that this hallway here will have a stairway over on the right, not code compliant for an upper floor living area, but we're doing a loft. So I've got about, I forget the exact width of the hallway here, but I have enough room here where if I want to do a full width kind of code compliant stairway, you're looking at like 36, 39 inches, depending on how you frame it. You need clear space between the handrails, plus you need the wall framing around it. And what I'll be doing is a little bit different. I'm going to compact it. I'm probably only going to come over about 30 inches, and I'm going to turn the studs sideways. It's a common trick to be able to get a little more room out of a wall. So instead of the studs running this way, they'll be set on a narrower plate that I'll rip, and the studs will set sideways. It is not structural. There's nothing going on in here. It's really just adding stiffness to the stairway. And again, because this is just a storage loft, it does not need to be code compliant on the width of the stairway. We prefer to have a larger hallway here because that is predominantly what we'll be using the space for. So it makes more sense to not have all that dead space taken up by a stairway that we're not going to be using all the time. And that is allowed. I don't know codes for your area, but in our area that is allowed, and so I'm not worried about that. So what I've been doing is rolling joists for the second floor. As you can see, I have most of them here. Not everything is trimmed out. I have this habit where I'll run things a little bit long rather than cutting, measuring, cutting on the ground, being a 16th off, whatever, worrying about that. I'll get something up in the air, and then I'll trim it off perfectly flush. So you can see now what will start happening here is that joist is flush with this wall, and the idea is that the drywall is going to run right up onto it, and then there will be a loft kind of railing up there. So that is going to be the loft running back that way. And then this will all be just a wall. And then I'm going to balloon frame this. So that ran long just because that's what I was doing and laying it out. But I'm actually going to be removing that because I don't need it. There's no sense building like 4 or 5 pieces of wall where 1 or 2 would do. So right on the top plate there, which I'm going to leave in place for the spacing and the width and the stiffness of it, I'm going to do a balloon frame up to the height of the knee wall. So the height of this knee wall here here will be slightly taller. That's a 2x10, so by 9¼ inches here, compared to the height of that knee wall. That will have flooring and a bit of a shorter knee wall by 9 inches on that section. So that knee wall will run all along here, and I have a bunch of straps and everything else to also add some uplift resistance and all the rest of the things that I need to do. Most of that is not per code. I really just want to hit a higher number on our wind tolerance. The county requires 90 miles an hour, but I'm feeling the wind blow all the time. We're hearing gusts here that can run 110, so I'm designing the whole house for 130. Basically every code table that lists a spec, I'm upscaling and uprating it to be able to support that. The stairs will run up from here over on the right hand side, not to that header, coming back another header or two. I ran out of lumber, as I said. That's my last piece, and I need to order a little bit more. I bought out the last of what they had at the store. They only had 14 pieces in stock of the length that I needed, so I have to wait a little bit for some of that to come back in stock. But there will be 2 more stud distances. This will be about the end of the stairway right here. I've decided would be a good run. When I did the calculation on it, getting a nice 7-11 rise over run, it would come out to about here. So there will be a little bit of a setback from the arch before the stairway starts. As you can see, there's a very long hallway here. So coming up over here, there will be a header right about at this spot here once I get enough lumber to do it. And the loft will actually run over to here. So the loft will come out over this direction and end right where the stairs come up and hit it. I'm not going to do a hole through the floor of the loft for the stairs. The stairs are going to come up and just meet the loft. And then I'll just have a railing over this section here, obviously for safety and support and to kind of frame it out a little bit. The rest of the rooms are coming together really nicely. You can start to really get a sense of their size and shape now. The master bed is, fairly large. It's definitely not a mansion, but it's easily enough space for us. And now you can start to see how those spaces start feeling here. Don't mind the empty openings here. The sheathing is coming down over the bottom joist and the bottom girder, and it's actually going to run up over the upper floor as well to tie all of that structure together. And as you can see, I've got blocking all along here that it's going to nail to. This is one of my little things where I could have done a better job. I nailed my blocking sideways. It was just easy as I was framing it and doing everything, but then that only leaves 3/4 inch of overlap here. I got wise about midway through, and as you can see, I rotated my blocking about halfway through the project here, so now my blocking is going sideways and I have a full 1 3/4 inch overlap with my sheathing now. It's not actually a big deal. This is acceptable and this will do what I want it to do. Not that there's any code that requires it. There is no framing inspection or anything else around here, but it is smarter if you can get more overlap with your blocking. And my blocking is not required here for fire. I am not trying to block the spread of the fire. As you can see, even sideways, it's not running the full width of the 2x6, and that's just because I do have full continuous top and bottom plates, and per code the maximum distance on that is 8 feet in this area here. And these are only 8-foot walls. We decided not to go with 9 or 10-foot walls. Honestly, these walls are plenty tall enough for us. And, if I put my hand up and try to reach, I can't reach that wall, or that ceiling, sorry. So I'm not worried about the height. My wife and I both grew up with 8-foot ceilings in all of the houses we've ever lived in. So this whole trend of 9 to 10-foot ceilings is just really not like adding much value for us. So just while I'm standing here, before I make one final comment, you can see one of my mistakes. So what I've done here is I've got some repair couplings that you can see down in the pit. This is my sewer line, my second sewer line. The main sewer line is under the house and runs out and up over to the camper. Now, as I was digging the footings, I knew that that line was down there. This wasn't like, oh, whoops, you should have, checked for it first. I'm the one that put it there. I just misjudged, I hadn't run the excavator in a while. I've run an excavator 7 or 8 times now. I'm getting decent at it, but not perfect. And I just misjudged. I knew the thing was there, and I just kind of went a little deeper than I had to. I was in a hurry because I've got a friend that I was sharing time with, and he wanted to be able to use it, and I wanted to be able to make sure he had as much time on the machine as he could. So I was kind of in a hurry digging that footing there, and I just misjudged it. I got a little too close and carried away. So I've got repair couplings down there. I'm not super thrilled about that. That's not a great permanent solution. I would like to replace that with a more permanent, completely glued setup, much smoother setup, because you can get some blockages or backups there where material gathers at those joints. And you can see I've got some extra material cut here for it. But my local hardware store did not have a repair coupling. The thing about this is that these pipes are not flexible in any way. To be able to do a repair on them, you can't move them or bend them or jimmy them out of the way. They're buried in the ground. They have zero give, and that's on purpose. You don't want them to have any give. But what it means is that to do repairs, you can't use normal couplings. You need to use what are called slip couplings. Those are couplings where the internal rib that's designed to prevent them from slipping too far one way or the other is not there. And that way you can slip it all the way over to one segment of the pipe, glue everything, and then just slide it back. Problem is that this is S&D. This is not Schedule 40. It's a little bit thinner, but it's actually good. It's not weaker. S&D is designed for burial, and this stuff is really meant for our type of situation. If you had any ground movement at all, PVC Schedule 40 is very brittle. Although it's thick and strong, if there's any ground movement at all, it can break and crack. And this stuff is actually much more flexible. And if there's any ground movement at all, even a quarter of an inch, this stuff will flex with it. So this is really recommended in our area for burial. And, my understanding is it's common in other areas too. So I don't know, what your standards are if you're watching from a different location. But in any event, the problem is S&D has far fewer fittings on the market for it than Schedule 40. It's very common. It's common enough that every hardware store carries it, but not 35 options for it, like your typical local hardware store. Our Home Depot is an hour and a half away. Our hardware store is 45 minutes. Our hardware store did not have what Home Depot probably would have, which is the extra fittings I would have needed. So I've got some temporary couplers there, and I will be replacing those with something permanent once I'm able to get the final fittings there. So you can see I'm just about prepped here. Not going to bury that until I'm sure everything's good, but have to do a little bit of work. Finally, just kind of coming down to the hallway, one last comment here. I've got a couple of things that I need to tidy up. So I left my joists a little proud. I was originally planning on putting joists all the way over this hallway and having this be more closed off, some more loft space available. And I'm not really sure that I want to do that. It'll depend on the price of lumber. Honestly, at this point, we're running a little hot with the budget. We're not broke, but we're definitely feeling it and wanting to be cautious with new spend. So kind of thinking about, each one of those joists, I need 8 footers to get across here, probably running, $19 a piece. And that's delivered in this area, which is honestly a pretty decent price considering. But, you start adding them up. If you add up $19 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're looking at $190, just short of $200, and just trying to decide if it makes sense. So we have not made a final decision about that and will, and you'll probably see that in the next video. Now, I do have some extra material. You can really start seeing this living room and great room come together. These 2x4s here are the rafter ties for the great room. The reason is that joists will serve the purpose of rafter ties when there is a second floor. But we will not be running a second floor over this space, nor over the kitchen and dining room. So we need something to tie those exterior walls. I will be doing a structural ridge beam, but I wanted, belt and suspenders approach. I wanted some extra insurance here, so I wanted to include some ties to resist the lateral forces. This is a very high wind area, and it's not just about the spreading load from the roof coming down. It's also the load coming in this direction as the wind pushes on the wall. There's really nothing to resist it right here in this room. It's just a big open space. So when I'm doing this, I'll be running these across. Now, 2x4s are plenty strong enough for what I'm doing. They are, however, not very pretty. And that's fine. What we're going to do is put these up. I'll double them up and space them every 4 feet. So there will be essentially about a 4x4 here, a built-up beam. And I'm kind of doing that out of this material because they're pretty wavy and pretty messed up. But compared to the 4x4 stock I was able to obtain, there's still something that I can work with. So if you look at this, this one's pretty good. This one's nice and straight. Some of the others, not so much. I don't know if I can find a good example here for the video. Actually, that's good too. 2 lucky ones. And then now you can start seeing this one's, kind of wavy midway down, very warped, very curved. You can see particularly down on the bottom end. They're also not straight this direction, so you can see there's a lot of warping in this one. So I'll have to put it, obviously crown side up, but look at how much that beam comes out. So by building up out of 2 pieces each, I can use each one to straighten the imperfections of the other. And they don't have to be perfect. They just have to tie the structure together, and then we'll box them in. So we'll probably get some rough sawn cedar, maybe some white oak, something along those lines. We'll box these in, and you'll never notice that these are, slightly warped or, a little bit less than perfect. So those will be the ties across this section here, and there will be some Simpson structural connectors holding that together. And then the same thing will be true over the kitchen and dining room. The kitchen and dining room don't really have as much concern. There's really only one exterior wall, that's the mudroom. But I wanted to replicate the look for one thing, so that it's very consistent. They'll run, kind of continuously straight across and just kind of be sort of the aesthetic. But then the other thing is that if I'm trying to resist wind loads, pushing on the outside of this wall over here, this wall is the only thing stopping it. Problem is, this is an interior wall that, it's very stiff, but not like infinitely stiff. And so by running an additional tie to that wall, it'll make a straight connection straight across the structure here, where the entire structure will become very rigid and very resistant to wind from either direction. Wind never blows from 2 places at once, but it definitely blows pretty hard in unpredictable directions around here. So we wanted to allow a little bit of room for that. I am rapidly running through my lumber here. It looks like there's an awful lot on the deck, but these 2x4s will evaporate probably in a day's work as I build up those beams, and they'll go pretty quickly. This remaining 2x4 material is going to be for second floor interior walls, of which we will not have very many, but there will be one important wall running along this direction here that kind of separates the storage and mechanical room from sort of like it's not sleeping space, it is a loft, but sort of like the bonus room, if you want to call it that. So that material will be for that. These remaining 2x6s will be used to frame out the knee wall along this section here, as well as the gable ends. So those will be under this section, and that looks like an awful big pile of lumber, but I bet you I'm short by at least 10 boards, just back of the napkin math. This material here is extra sheathing, but I am short sheathing material as well. All of my sheathing is going to need to go from all of this blocking up across the second floor walls to help tie that together. I also have some Simpson structural connectors for that, to provide some more uplift resistance, and some wind resistance as well. So I have some straps that will span from the second floor wall down onto the first floor wall across these floor joists. So that will help tie all that together much more rigidly. But I'm going to be getting another 10, 20 of these delivered, and also the flooring for the second floor for the loft. So all that material has to arrive here in the next couple of days. And then at that point, I'm hoping that I have enough to kind of pull off the bulk of the rest of the project here, because we don't have enough money to complete anymore. The last question will be roof sheathing. And if I can get, next couple of months, put a little bit aside, be able to buy the roof sheathing. By the end of the year, this structure should be closed in and at least dried in. So that magic term is important for us, because once it's dried in, we know we can get through our winter without, having more OSB damage and stuff like that. This is held up really well, but, there is a little bit of, kind of cupping and swelling on the edges here. I'll knock that down with a floor sander. Yes. Advantech would have prevented that. However, Advantech is $45 a sheet. This stuff's $19. So you can talk to me about Advantech when you want to write the check for it. Till then, when I wrote the check, this was what we could afford at the time. If I had put Advantech down, I would not have been able to afford all this. So not unhappy with the choice, and I don't mind taking an hour with a floor sander, just knocking down some of the high points here. So not a big deal, but we would like to not have it go through the winter over 6 or 9 months before dealing with something else there. So, we'll be putting our second floor flooring on and getting that all built out. And in the next couple of videos, you should see us being able to actually stand on the second floor and start building up and maybe starting to get a roof put on. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.